So right now, guys, Russia and Ukraine are pretty much kind of like almost like at a standstill. And what I mean by this is that this has now become a war of attrition. And a war of attrition is a war where, okay, who can last longer? We know that unfortunately for Ukraine, they can't last that much longer, guys. They just simply can't. They don't have the manpower. Too many of their men have died. And right now, Russia has the advantage. Now, early in the conflict, Russia was beating the crap out of Ukraine. They were taking territory left and right. But Ukraine was able to launch a counteroffensive and push Russia back. And there were some glimpses of them potentially being able to, have a chance in this conflict. But unfortunately, the Russian military is too powerful, is too big, and we are only supporting them from a logistics/assistance type role. We don't have boots on the ground, okay? Now, it's one thing to have this problem for a year. It's another thing to have this problem for 3 years. So what's ended up happening, guys, is Ukraine simply doesn't have the manpower to stop the Russian offensive. So what Russia is doing is they're slowly fucking meat grinding into Ukraine. Slowly but surely, but they're taking land, okay? They weren't able to get land as quickly as they thought. The Kremlin basically thought, oh, we'll be able to go ahead and take over Ukraine in a couple of days, which technically they can, by the way, just so you guys know. Technically they can, right? If they wanted to, they could have just fucking did airdrops, airstrikes for a week straight and then come in on a ground offensive and then take the country over, just like we did with Iraq. But the thing is this, Ukrainians, and we went over this in history, Ukrainians are pretty much Russians, bro. They used to be one people, to us Westerners, we look at it like they're the same, but there's, they have little subtle nuances, whatever. It is what it is, right? Right? But they're basically like the same people. And half the country is divided with ethnic Russians, half the country is divided with ethnic Ukrainians. Putin knows that Kiev and further out west is going to be very difficult to control, right? Though he could have air-bombed the fuck out of the country and taken it over, he wanted to take Ukraine intact, especially the eastern region, which has a lot of ethnic Russians. Okay, and these ethnic Russians have been fighting with the Zelensky Ukrainian government for a while. Okay, we're talking about tens of thousands of people dying, etc., in the Donbass region, and no one talks about that because obviously that would hurt the narrative of the West because they have to show the Russians as the aggressors. And we've been trying to expand NATO for a very long time, so pretty much Russia said, "Fuck it, we're going in," and that's what ended up happening. So now that we've been in this war for 3 years now, chat, remember, they invaded February 24th, 2022, right? Now that we're in this war and, it's very clear that they don't have the resources to keep this going, Donald Trump comes in and says, all right, we got to end this shit, right? Biden got us into this. We got to end this shit because Biden and the Democratic Party, basically we've overstayed our welcome. We thought, oh yeah, let's go ahead and fight the Russians. Let's go ahead and kill a bunch of them. Let's, have them drain their resources. Let's see their capabilities because, guys, just so y'all know, this war, a big reason we're involved is because it allows us to see Russian capabilities, okay? As you guys know, the Russians are another superpower. We want to know what they have, how they conduct warfare, etc. So in a scenario where we would fight them, we would know what they're doing. And we're arming the Ukrainians with our technology to see how our technology works against the Russians, okay? Now, have we given them everything? No. Because obviously, they don't want them shooting missiles into fucking Moscow and shit like that and create problems for us. So we're doing as much as we can with as little of U.S. involvement as far as soldiers go. And then we're going up the highest we can in the escalation ladder with weapons and support without getting dragged into the war ourselves. Does that make sense, chat? So we're coming in from a logistical perspective. But they can't keep this up anymore. The Russians are advancing every single day. They're taking towns almost every single day, right? Or every couple of days, excuse me. So now we're at a point now where we need to stop the Russian onslaught, right? And Trump knows this. The U.S. knows this. Now we got to convince Mr. Zelensky to stop being an idiot and know this. Because the problem with Zelensky is being extremely hard-headed. Zelensky, just so you guys know, he basically wants the Russians to completely pull out, give them back Crimea, which they lost in 2014, which they're never going to give that up. They got a fucking naval base there, and it's like their only access to the fucking, to the waterways, right? Strategically, it's very important for them. So Putin thinks, oh yeah, you guys got to leave Crimea, you guys got to leave Ukraine altogether, and you can't keep any of the territory, that you've taken. Putin, meanwhile, they ain't giving shit back, bro. And this meeting, right, when we summarized yesterday, it was a W for both. Now, for Putin, the reason why this meeting was a W is because now the international world has to recognize he's real, okay? Over the past 3 years, guys, the Democrats have been working really hard to ensure that the international community does not take Russia seriously. They've sanctioned them, not stop doing business with them, will not recognize any of the land that they've taken from Ukraine. They've taken roughly 20 to 30% of land all across eastern Ukraine from the Ukrainians. So the Biden administration and the U.S. government in general, their stance on all this, and the EU as well, basically was like, you're a war criminal, you're a dictator, we're not going to acknowledge and or recognize any of the territory gains you've made, and we're not going to exercise diplomacy with you. That was the mantra prior to Trump coming in. But once Trump came in, he said, you know what, bro, we got to fucking do something. We're not going to win this thing. They're getting stronger by the day. They're taking more land by the day. More and more people are dying by the day, and it's costing us a lot of fucking money, okay? Namely the money. So us running this exercise and seeing how our military stacks up and our technology to Russia is no longer worth it. Also, another thing that's important, the Russians want Ukraine way more than we want to defend it. Let me make that explicitly clear for you guys, okay? The Russians want Ukraine way more than we want to defend it, okay? And they've shown that they are willing to throw bodies at the problem, and they're willing to fight for years for this problem, because this has been an issue for them from a national security perspective for many years, over a decade. This war didn't start in fucking 2022, okay? So this is how we've kind of ended up in the position that we're in now, where the Ukrainians can't even defend. There's a bunch of barrier lines, guys, that the Ukrainian military have drawn. They can't even patrol them. They have to rely heavily upon landmines to be able to booby trap areas, because they can't even put men out there. So it's an L, bro. It's really an L. And that's what this meeting is about, okay? Figuring out the path towards a ceasefire, because the West just wants a ceasefire right now. And Trump understands the elephant in the room is, if I want this ceasefire, I have to come in and acknowledge and recognize Russia. So that's why this is a big W for Russia. Putin is being looked at and taken legit. He's legit now. Now, for the U.S., the reason why this is a W, despite what people might say, is because for Trump, no one talked to Putin for like 4 years, okay? In the Biden administration, no one spoke to him since 2021. We basically had like an isolationist policy with them. We weren't going to recognize their gains. We were going to support Ukraine no matter what. You know, we hate Putin. He's an evil dictator, blah, blah, blah. So Trump opening the door for diplomacy was a big W for him. Also, make no fucking mistake about it, guys. Donald Trump is pursuing a Nobel Peace Prize, okay? He is pursuing a Nobel Peace Prize on this presidency. It's what he's looking for, okay? Don't let anybody fucking fool y'all. That's why he's went out of his way to, you know, get involved with the Congo conflict, the India-Pakistan conflict, the Azerbaijan and Armenia conflict. He's resolved several different conflicts over the past couple of months, which I will give him credit for, right? Some of them were winding down. They weren't really at the height. And then also, he takes credit for, even though it's not over, he takes credit for ending the Iran-Israel 12-day war as well. But that war is going to kick back on. There ain't no fucking debating that one, okay? Even Marco Rubio yesterday slipped. If you guys were watching my show yesterday.
I think there's a possibility that something could come out.
Oh, look, he came in kind of a suit. As you guys remember, last time he came in, there was a kind of a fight. But he came in kind of a suit now.
And today's meeting is very important. We have, I guess, the seven very powerful leaders from Europe, and we're going to be meeting with them right after this meeting. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. If I can, first of all, thank you for invitation, and thank you very much for your efforts, personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war. Thank you. And using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States.
Yeah, I think Melania Trump wrote a letter to Putin saying to end the war, some shit like that. Bro, she needs to write a letter to Benjamin Netanyahu to do that too.
She sent a letter to Putin about our children, abducted children, and my wife, she, First Lady of Ukraine. She gave the letter. It's not to you, to your wife.
Oh, I want it.
Yeah. So we are saying this sensitive topic. Yes, please. And thanks to our partners, and that you supported this format, that after our meeting we can have leaders who are around us. You UK, France, Germany, Italy, Finland, EU, NATO. I mean, all partners around Ukraine supporting us. Thanks to them. Thank you very much for.
And real quick, I mean, just a little Easter egg for you guys that are probably wondering. The reason why Zelensky doesn't wear a suit, he claims, is because he's one with his people. So he typically wears like military type attire when he's meeting with other world leaders. And his excuse for that is, hey, I'm fighting alongside my people. I'm not going to dress up in a shirt and tie as my people are fighting. So that's why he kind of does this whole fucking thing where he wears military attire when he meets with other world leaders.
Thank you very much for being here.
President Trump.
Do you think it's fair?
Yes, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. So, President Zelensky, you say in a post on X today, Russia must end this war, which it itself started. President Trump, you say President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
No, I think that's true. I think we're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a
he's referring to a trilateral meeting where Zelensky will be in the room as well.
reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
And is this the end of the road for American support for Ukraine? Is today's meeting deal or no deal?
I can never say that. It's never the end of the road. People are being killed, and we want to stop that. So I would not say it's the end of the road. No, I think we have a good chance of doing it. It's been almost...
Hey guys, I don't know why it's blurry like that. That's obviously not me because you guys can still see me here. I'm still crispy. Fucking Fox Detroit is trash, but yeah.
It's 4 years now that a lot of people were killed last week. A lot of people last week. I mean, millions of people killed, but a lot of people last week for whatever reason.
Now, the casualties, no one really knows too much, but the killed in action for Ukraine is over 1 million. And then for the Russians is somewhere between 500,000 to 1 million as well. So we're talking about very fucking serious casualties here, guys, in this war, which was supposed to just be a special military operation. If you guys remember, when Putin first invaded in 2022, he called it a special military operation. But he didn't realize that the United States and NATO would get involved as much as they did. And we're basically able to keep Ukraine propped up.
Big number, a lot of soldiers, on both sides. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
And as you met with Putin on Friday, today you've got President Zelensky here. As you listen to Russia and Ukraine, which side has the better cards? Right?
Well, I don't want to say that. I'm just here to be, look, this isn't my war. This is Joe Biden's war. He's the one that had a lot to do with this happening, and we want to get it ended. And we want it to end good for everybody. We want it to end good. The people of Ukraine have suffered incredibly.
And to that point, President Zelensky, are you prepared to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for another couple years, or are you going to agree to redraw the maps?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all,
That's a very good question.
we live under each day attacks. You know that today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead, small one year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners, and we will do our best for this. So, and I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, of personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war, and we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good. Thank you.
Mr. President,
yes, if the peace deal will be achieved, are you going to be willing to send American peacekeepers to Ukraine?
Well, we're going to work with Ukraine. We're going to work with everybody, and we're going to make sure that if there's peace, the peace is going to stay long-term. This is very long-term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace, and then we end up in this mess again. We're going to make sure that everything's good. We'll work with Russia. We're going to work with Ukraine, and we're going to make sure it works. And I think if we can get to peace, it's going to work. I have no doubt about it.
Now, I know you guys are probably wondering, Myron, why does it, what's the deal with with the European leaders also being there. So the reason, guys, why the European leaders are there is because with the European leaders, so the European leaders are going to be the ones that ensure that when the peace agreement is made, that Ukraine will not be attacked again. One of the biggest hangups that Zelensky has is, since they're not a part of NATO, by them not being a part of NATO, and if they get attacked, it doesn't trigger something called Article 5. Article 5, guys, is basically the concept of you attack one, you attack all. Ukraine doesn't have that, okay? So if Ukraine does decide, you know what, okay, we'll surrender, we'll give you guys we'll give you guys the lines that you guys have taken, we'll concede. They want to make sure that Putin doesn't come back and attack them again later. So they want certain things in place to ensure that they can maintain security and that there's the ability for them to kind of wage an attack if they're, invaded again. Now, the thing here also that Putin wants is he wants Ukraine basically demilitarized, and he doesn't want any NATO or Western forces in Ukraine like they were trying to do before. Now, the reason why this is going to be a little bit tricky is because what Zelensky really wants, chat, is he wants basically a NATO assurance without being in NATO. Now, here's the problem. That is precisely why Putin invaded in the first place. Very important that you guys understand that. The reason why he invaded in the first place was because of potential NATO encroachment and Western influence and the issues that we got in the Donbass region, etc. So they're going to have to kind of find a middle ground where Zelensky feels safe and assured that Russia won't attack him again, because there's things in place where if he attacks again, there's some reassurances that they'll get backup. But at the same time, the whole reason why Putin invaded them in the fucking first place was to avoid this shit. So they're going to have to come to some kind of middle ground here where Zelensky still feels safe, right? And the Ukrainians still are able to exercise some level of sovereignty, right, without feeling like they're going to get invaded by the Russians. But at the same time, Putin's like, hey, well, from our national security perspective, we're not going to let NATO be on our fucking doorstep no more. So it's going to be tricky about how they navigate that. Also, I don't know if Zelensky's going to agree to this, but they're probably going to have to do like land swaps and shit like that too as well. So we'll see.
7 very powerful, very big countries and great people, all friends of mine and friends of yours. And we're going to have some suggestions made. They want to see
way better.
peace. They would like to see peace.
President Trump, you said last
In the
night
red,
that-
in the red.
President Trump, do you think it's fair to, for Ukraine and for Russia to achieve a lasting and durable peace if Ukraine cedes its territories that Russia hasn't yet conquered? Do you think it's a fair peace for Ukraine?
We're going to have a
She asked them, for towns that they haven't conquered yet and giving those over, is that a fair peace, is what she asked. Strange question, but that's what she asked.
lasting peace. Just to answer the first part of your question, we're going to have a lasting peace. I hope it's going to be immediately. I hope it doesn't have to go on. And I think people of the whole world is going to be very happy when that's announced. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, you posted on social media, Mr. President, a very touching letter from the First Lady, and the letter was hand-delivered to President Putin, and it calls for an end to the war, essentially, because of the children and the children's future. Why did the First Lady feel that letter was necessary? Was it because she believes that Mr. Putin is the aggressor in the war? Is a similar letter being...
She's also from that part of the world as well. So, you know what I mean? I think that also is very relevant.
hand-delivered to President Zelensky?
So the First Lady felt very strongly. She's watched the same thing that you watch and that I watch. I see things that you don't get to see, and it's horrible. But when she's got a great love of children, she has a wonderful son that she loves, probably more than anybody, including me. I hate to say it, but she loves her son. She loves children, and she hates to see something like this happening. And that goes for other wars too. I mean, she sees the heartbreak, the parents, the funerals that you see on television. Always funerals. We want to see something other than funerals. No, she felt it was a beautiful letter. It was very well received by him, and she did ask me to say, you know,
I think Melania Trump is Russian too, chat. Let me double check this, man. Let me look here.
she's watched the same thing that
I'm almost certain she's Russian or Ukrainian. Okay, Slovenian. Okay. Yugoslavia, Slovenia. Yeah. Okay. So now she's Eastern European in general. So she's very familiar with this part of the world.
She would love to see this end. She would love to see it end, and she says it very openly, very proudly, and with great sorrow because so many people have been killed.
Mr. President, last week,
Brian, go ahead, Brian.
Yes, sir. I've got a question for each of you.
Yes.
First of all, Mr. President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said
Look, see, I knew they were going to say.
the same thing.
Yeah, looks good on
I
you.
said the one that attacked you last time. See, now he's I remember that.
I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed, you are not.
Maybe yours is much better.
He had to get a shot back at him.
Real quickly, upon peace, God willing we get peace, are you open to holding an election in your country?
Yes, of course. We are open for election, yes. We have to do safety circumstances, and a little bit we need to work in the parliament, because during the war you can't have elections, but we can do security. We need, maybe, how to say, we need a truth, yes, everywhere, in the battlefield, in the sky, in the sea, yeah, to make possible for people to do democratic, open, legal elections.
So you say
we are ready.
during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now. So you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections? Oh, that's good. I wonder what the fake
You like
news
this
is.
idea?
Yeah.
No.
Speaking of news, I got a question for you. This sounds insane for me even to ask this, but do you think the American media really doesn't even want a peace deal because they've seen they've been so critical of you every step of the way as you lead the charge for peace?
It's an amazing phenomenon. I said that if in the settlement you got Moscow, St. Petersburg, and thousands of miles around them, they would say, I made a bad deal. The level of...
Yeah, look, man, you guys know I make fun of both sides, but, it's amazing to me how the left, like, goes after Trump and says that, like, oh, yeah, this guy, is trash. He's over here recognizing Putin, trying to make a deal, blah, 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 trying to negotiate with a dictator. It's like, bro, at this point, like, it's the only thing we can do. Like, we don't have any more leverage. And you idiots are the ones that brought us into this war. Even Putin admitted that at the summit, that if Trump was president, there probably wouldn't have been a war. That's a big W for Trump, right? And actually, this is one of the big reasons why I voted for Trump, was to end this fucking conflict. Because I don't know why the fuck we're still wasting time in Eastern Europe and Ukraine that doesn't really provide that much strategic value to us when we really need to be focusing on fucking China. We're getting our asses kicked by China, chat. Okay? We are getting our asses kicked by China. They're rising up. They're becoming stronger. India as well. All right? BRICS is becoming bigger. We need to get the fuck out of the Middle East and focus on China and get the fuck out of Eastern Europe as well. These are going to be the big spheres of influence over the next 20 years.
Of hatred and animosity is incredible. Not with all. I mean, we have great people up here. We also have terrible people up there that I think are told what to say. But, in solving all of these wars, they don't even write about it. I saw major wars. I saw wars that have been going on for 31, 35, and 37, and a couple of quicker ones. One that was going to go into a full-blown deal very quickly. You know what the one I'm talking about? It was a big one. But they don't even write about that. No matter what I do, no matter what, and this is not anything to do with you. It's probably to your advantage in a certain way. But no matter what I do, no matter what deal I make, from my standpoint, you'll come out good. Maybe President Putin will come out good. But they'll say, Trump was absolutely horrible. It's just that, and I've lived with that for a long time. I've lived with it since just before the first election. Now I get the worst publicity anyone's ever gotten in office, but I won in a landslide, so that people understand. They're the only ones that count, ultimately. But I've also had great reporters. I've had journalists that are very good. But it's very sad when you do the right thing. As an example, they said, because of the fact that Vladimir Putin came to American soil, this was a tremendous defeat for Donald Trump. No, it was really wonderful that he did it. It was a hard thing for him to do, to be honest with you. It was the opposite of what they said.
Yeah, the left that's trying to frame it like an L, they're stupid. That's look. You guys know I'm critical of Trump. I've been hate to be, but it was a W that he was able to get Putin to come to the United States. The reason why the Democrats are pissed off is because they don't want the United States to recognize Israel as a legitimate power, because for them to do that will legitimize his military advancement and takeover of Ukraine, and they don't want that. But that's just being fucking delusional. The Democrats are basically doing this shit. I don't see nothing, even though they're fucking bleeding. At least Trump took the blindfold off and was like, all right, bro, we got to stop this fucking bleeding. Put the tourniquet on. Because this is a losing war for the West in general. Absolutely losing war. The Russians want Ukraine more than we do. And they're willing to die for it. We're not, clearly. So it's time to end this fucking war, to cut our losses, and move on to the real threat, which is the Indo-Pacific, man.
But they said it. Now, if he didn't come, they'd say that was also bad for Trump. You know, there's no way. And there's just a great dishonesty of the press, and I think that's why it's lost its credibility. You know, its credibility is at an all-time low.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week, you warned of what you called severe consequences if a 30-day ceasefire or any type of ceasefire were not agreed to by Russia. Will there be severe consequences? Does that change because
I don't think you need a ceasefire. You know, if you look at the six deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, you know, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, you know, maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the six deals that we made peace and you know, long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires. Would I like the concept, you know, I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
Can you explain the decision to offer Ukraine Article 5-like security guarantees, but stop short of...
Okay, so this is a big one, chat. I explained this earlier. This is the big one. This is why Zelensky, this is one of the things that Zelensky needs in place before he does any type of deal with the Russians. Like I said before, Article 5 is basically a basically, if anything happens, if any of these NATO powers are attacked, an attack on one is an attack on all. It's a protection clause. Okay, it's like, think of it as like a tripwire, where if they attack, you attack everybody else, and that is precisely what Putin attacked for, was to make sure that they don't get into NATO. So Zelensky wants some type of NATO-like Article 5 triggering, though he's not going to be in it, because another part of this deal, by the way, is that Ukraine will not join NATO for at least like 20 years. They're going to negotiate something where for a couple of decades, Ukraine will not be able to join. So, but Zelensky still needs something that could assure their safety, which I can understand why he wants that. So it's a bit of a dilemma here, because that's precisely why Putin invaded in the first place.
Pushing for their full membership.
Yeah, well, we haven't done anything on that yet. If you look back and you go back long before President Putin, it was always a statement that they would never allow Ukraine into NATO. So that was a statement that was made, but we haven't discussed any of that yet. We're going to be discussing it today, but we will give them very good protection, very good security. That's part of it. And the people that are waiting for us, they are, I think they're very like-minded. They want to help out all.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Trump.
Are you disappointed there's no
The United States has already given hundreds of billions of dollars to this war effort in Ukraine. At best, it is a stalemate, and the killing continues. So, President Trump, how much more is the United States willing to give Ukraine? And President Zelensky, how much more do you want?
Well, I'll start off just by saying we're not giving anything now. We're selling weapons. This is something before, I guess the number is well over $300 billion. That was under Joe Biden, a corrupt politician.
Crooked Joe.
Not a smart man. Never was. By the way, go back 40 years. He was not a smart man 40 years ago either. But now he's in particular bad. This was done by a corrupt administration that shouldn't have been in, and frankly, if the right results of the election were given, if I were president, this war would have never taken place, and he would have been very happy because he would have liked to have seen. I mean, they went through hell. He went through hell. This war would have never happened, and the people that were killed, a couple of million people, a lot of people with soldiers and everything else, and the people that have been displaced and forced into other areas and other countries because of what's happened, none of that would have happened. And I'm just saying that he was a horrible president, whether it was the borders or this. He was just a horrible, corrupt president.
Mr. President,
You want to
I can. Thank you so much. So first of all, we have possibility now to buy weapon from the United States. We are thankful for this program and this opportunity. We are thankful for Europe. They pay for this. And through NATO program, for example, Pearl and etc., we have some programs where we can have some money to finance this. And this is a part, I think, it's not a part for the war and to defend us. It also will be a part for security guarantees, to strengthen our army, to rearm Ukrainian army. This is very, very important. And it depends how much money we need to rearm.
Also, guys, Hamas accepted a ceasefire offering. It's not a permanent ceasefire, but we'll cover that next year. Actually, we'll do the Israeli veto, then we'll do the ceasefire. Got a lot of news here, man.
For example, the question of air defense, we spoke about it with President Trump, and I'm happy that we have now bilateral decisions and we work on it with production, American production. Nobody in Europe has so many air defense like Patriots, for example. We need it very much, and this is also about defending.
I think the good news, we make the best military equipment in the world by far. You mentioned the Patriots. How good are they?
Systems.
We have systems, they're literally 100% foolproof. And it's really like shooting two bullets, two bullets hitting each other in the air in a space like this. The chances, 100%. It's 99 to 100%.
Also, I've talked about this before. I think I was the only person to mention this. Another reason why we attacked Iran that no one has talked about, I've never heard anyone say it besides me, was that attack on Iran was a infomercial for American weapons, okay? After we did that attack, a bunch of people have gotten really interested in, B-2 bombers, or Patriot missiles, etc. Because keep in mind, guys, that this operation was done. It was a multi-pronged operation where we had submarines shooting, we had the B-2 bombers dropping bombs. We had a whole diversion team of B-2 bombers that diverted any type of, interception, air defense. So it was a huge, huge fucking infomercial for the world to buy weapons from us. And you guys can see, we're selling weapons, definitely selling weapons. It's no mistake that your boy Pete Hegseth and his top guy were, when they did the press conference after they bombed Iran, they went into quite a bit of detail about how they pulled it off, right? So the rest of the world is definitely on notice, and the rest of the world wants some of that weaponry.
So we sell the equipment to NATO, and NATO.
There you go. See?
Does what, I don't know what the arrangement is that you have with, but I know that they want you to have the equipment. And we're getting the best equipment in the world, but they pay us for the equipment. Under Biden, it was just crazy what was going on. I believe the number is over 300. I think it could be $350 billion worth of equipment and money and everything else. And we've made more progress in settling this war in the last 2 months than they made in 4 years. This should have been settled a long time ago, but it should have never happened. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, what guarantees do you need from President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligence, equipment? What is it?
Everything. And really, it includes two parts. First, strong Ukrainian army. That's what I began to discuss with your colleagues. And it's a lot about weapon and then people and training.
Bro, what army, bro? You guys are you guys got no soldiers, man. You guys are kidnapping 18-year-olds off the street, bro. What are you talking about, man?
missions and intelligence, and second, we will discuss with our partners. It depends on the big countries, on the United States, on a lot of our friends.
And Mr. President, are you willing to commit American troops to that NATO-like protection in order to get President Zelensky to a deal today?
Well, I don't know if you define it that way, but NATO-like, I mean, we're going to give, we have people waiting in another room right now. They're all here from Europe, biggest people in Europe, and they want to give protection. They feel very strongly about it, and we'll help them out with that. I think it's very important. I think it's very.
So what they're basically going to, he doesn't want to say this, obviously, for obvious reasons. They're going to create something that's similar to an Article 5 trigger specifically for Ukraine. It won't be NATO, obviously, because that's the whole reason we're in this fucking mess in the first place. But it's going to be something similar, where if the Russians attack Ukraine, it will trigger a response from the United States and the European powers.
Very important to get the deal done.
You've been involved with the peacekeeping in Ukraine since your first day in the administration. What would you say to the Ukrainian people right now who are suffering under the Russian attacks and hoping that the American people will stand with them?
Well, I know Ukrainian people. I've known many over the years. They're great people. They're smart. They're energetic. They love their country. I mean, they love their country, and we want to get this war ended. That's all I can do. I love the Ukrainian people, but I love all people. I love the Russian people. I love them all. I want to get the war stopped. Very important.
Mr. President, was there any aspect of your discussion with Vladimir Putin that left you disappointed?
Look,
Jacob White says, have you seen the new Gaza ceasefire? Yes, we're going to talk about that.
we just spoke to, I was just telling the president, I just spoke to President Putin indirectly, and we're going to have a phone call right after these meetings today. And we may or may not have a trilat. If we don't have a trilat, then the fighting continues. And if we do, we have a good chance. I think if we have a...
And the Russians have no incentive to stop. The FYI, guys, the Russians are going to drag their feet. Every day that passes by, they take more territory. So they're in no rush at all, chat. In no rush to end this conflict. This is a war of attrition, and a war of attrition is something that the Ukrainians cannot win.
Trilat, there's a good chance of maybe ending it, but he's expecting my call when we're finished with this meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.